Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this September 7th, Thursday, 2017 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. As always, another edition of the Investigative Journal. This show's been out a long, long time, over 12 years now, and running strong. Running strong, folks, still with the alternative to the alternative news. Yes, we give you more than the mainstream, of course. We give you more than the alternative media because, you know, there's a lot of COINTEL operatives there. They give you 90% of the truth. We go headlong right into the Vatican-led New World Order without even blinking an eye to get to the truth for you. Because you got to cut the head of the snake off before you really understand what the hell's going on, right? Well, anyway, have to start off with the update on Hurricane Irma, but I'm going to give you just a little bit of my recollection of Florida, because that's where I worked for 2 years. It was my first 2 or 3 years. I can't remember. It's been so long ago. It was my first job as a journalist on the Naples Daily News, and I remember Florida so well. And, you know, I drove nonstop from Chicago to Florida for that job. And I remember I got there at about 3 in the morning. And the first thing I could do was to open my car door. I drove right to a parking lot, public parking lot, right by the beach. And I went out and put my feet in that water, and it felt great. Came back and decided to catch a few Z's before I figured, you know, it's too late to go to a hotel. And I'll get up at 6 and I'll go have breakfast, start the day, and then get a hotel room, find an apartment, etc., and check into work. However, as I was sleeping, a knock on the door came, and it was a police officer, one of the good police officers from Naples Daily News, and he said, "Hey, son, you know, you can't be sleeping in this public parking lot." And I said, "Officer, but you know, I've been driving all night from Chicago, and I got here about 3 in the morning, and I'm tired. I didn't want to go to a hotel room. And by the way, I'm one of your new newspaper reporters on the Naples Daily News." And he goes, "Oh, really?" "Yes, we have a good relationship with the Naples Daily News," he said. And so I said, "Fine." And I said, "Oh, by the way, I'll probably be covering the courts and the police." And he said, "Oh, really? Fantastic." So we chatted a little bit, and I said, "You know, the reason I wanted to get some sleep is that I told him the story. I didn't want to go to the hotel. And I said, you know, I just want to have breakfast in the morning." And he said, "Hey, there's a good place to have breakfast right past the Swamp Buggy over there." Swamp Buggy turned out to be a bar that a lot of the journalists hung out after work. And so we started talking, and he said, "You know what? Why don't you just get some sleep?" And I said, "Yeah, thank you, because I don't feel like driving anymore." He said, "You know, I guess it wouldn't hurt this one time. Just take a couple hours sleep and then hit that coffee shop, and you might meet some of the officers. We all go over there for coffee in the morning." I said, "Thanks, officer." So anyway, that was my introduction to Naples, beautiful city on the coast of Florida, the Gulf Coast. And let me tell you about that state. Florida, that town, a beautiful city. And I remember, but it can't take much water. I remember I was in a rainstorm, not even a tropical storm there, and I woke up to 2 feet of water up to my knees. And I lived in a second floor apartment right on the golf course, about 2 blocks from the ocean. And guess what? It cost about $175 a month when I was there. I bet you that same apartment now. Man, I'd like to go back and just see what that rent's for now. But anyway, I woke up to 2 feet of water, and that was only a storm overnight. Can you imagine with this hurricane at 185-mile-an-hour winds? That's, you know, maybe they're saying sustained wind at 150 right now, with gusts up to 225. It's a monster storm. It's supposed to head right up through the Keys and then right through Florida. I mean, it's bigger than the state of Florida. Now let's start out with what that area of Miami, Naples is like. You have Naples on the Gulf Coast, and if you draw a line directly and you go 90 miles on Alligator Alley, you hit Miami, and you're driving through the Everglades on at the time, I think it's a 2 or 4 lane highway, and it's swamp. Now, if that hurricane hits and drops that kind of rain, I mean, the whole thing's going to be a swamp over there. That whole southern area is going to be a swamp. Now, not to mention the damage from the wind damage. But if you start going down to the Keys, so let's say you want to go south, and I went to the Keys and visited a number of times because it's a beautiful place. Go down to Key West for the weekend, nice. But you're driving on these causeways that are 2-lane highways, and with barriers on the side and nothing but ocean between, key hopping from key to key, and that's the only way in and out. So what if these people are being evacuated, a mandatory evacuation in Key West and those keys down there, as of last night, Wednesday night. And what happens if those roads are out? They can't get back to their house unless they get in by boat. And then the food and everything has to be brought in by boat. I imagine it's manageable, but it's going to be amazing to see what happens here. And I hope that storm just kind of veers off a little bit. But they're saying no. And the way these people weather manipulate now, anything goes. And on top of this, to add injury to insult, we have a tropical storm Jose on the skirt tails of Irma. And by the way, Irma is it's a German name, and the translation is war goddess. Jose is coming up behind her. Whatever that's, is it going to be a 1-2-3 punch? We've already estimated the damage of $180 billion or $200 billion off of Harvey. And people just devastated there in the South. And isn't it interesting, the South and the East Coast are getting slammed all the time by these geoengineered Vaticanites that are trying to destroy this country. And what a crime it really is, too, because it's unsolvable. All they can say is, hey, it's the weather, it's Mother Nature. But, if you could ever prove this geomanipulation, and there's some good websites out there that are doing it, showing you now, there's even government documents been released, that they were cloud seeding before Harvey, the day before. And they can direct these storms, heat up the ionosphere through they now have detected a lot of these HAARP facilities all over the world. And so this is not just America here. They're going all over the place with these HAARP facilities. And they're basically engineering a war on humanity using the weather. And America is a big target right now because you know as well as I do, they have to take America out before this new world order is achievable. So here we have these hurricanes coming in, and I just heard the other day that NASA was drilling into Yellowstone, and you know what's under there, one of the biggest super calderas in the world that could devastate all of the United States if it ever blows. Now, why would they say they want to release pressure? Okay, do you believe them? I think there's a better chance they're trying to make it blow. But anyway, that story, I can touch on that a little later if I have time. But Hurricane Irma is a story that we're going to have to watch for the next few days. And I wanted to give you a little backdrop of what Naples is really like. And a beautiful city. I mean, I can imagine now. It's heavily populated now. I remember when I was there. I drove through there maybe 7 years ago, and I couldn't even recognize it. It was just overgrown. I say overgrown with buildings and things. It just didn't look like the same place. But still, it's a beautiful, beautiful area of Florida. I loved it there. And up above that's Fort Myers. And then you keep going further, get into Tampa up north. But the idea of this storm, if it comes right up through the Keys, the storm is bigger than the state of Florida. Because if you draw that line from, okay, I've driven it many times, Alligator Alley through the Everglades, draw a straight line, 90 miles, 2-lane or maybe 4-lane highway now at certain spots, all the way right to Miami, 90 right through the Everglades. So boy, if this thing hits, it might be all swamp, the whole thing. I mean, it's going to be an amazing story here if this thing hits at the speed and the power that they say. That this is a storm that scientists are shaking their head. They've never seen anything like it. It's the largest or the most powerful that's ever been recorded so far. Wow, what a story. And that's just one thing they're hitting us with. You know, not only are we worried about that storm. Yesterday we talked about the other assaults that they're bringing on, and I'll get to some of those a little later. Okay, I have to get to this story, and this one really rattled me a little bit when I heard about it. And what will the Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order think of next about ISIS, their creation, their terrorist baby, I call them? I mean, they created this monster just like the geoengineer people are creating these monster storms. And for years, since ISIS popped up on the scene, we've documented facts showing the Jesuit connection to ISIS. We've also showed you many signs and symbols. Isn't it interesting that the obelisks in Washington, D.C., and the Vatican, and in London are really symbols of worship to the goddess Isis, a phallic symbol. And we've gone through that complete story. So they named their final terrorist group, the one that's going to also wreak havoc on America, ISIS. Now, they always picture them. They show you a picture. They got these machine guns and their black hoods. And the ones I'm looking at here, these guys look more American. One guy in the middle looks like a Navy SEAL. I mean, he's huge. And they look Anglo in a sense. The guy to the right of him, I can see his face more. He's got a very, very, he looks Irish. I mean, where do they get these guys? This is a picture that they did because the CIA operatives, along with certain Jesuit priests that are making sure in Syria that these things go down correctly and the money gets transferred properly, because the West is funding this organization. But they've come up with a new one now, folks, and just another thing to worry about. And this one is on their websites now. And, remember in the past they were urging people to get in cars and then just run over people? But now they're doing something a little bit more dastardly. This is the low of the lowest, and it's going to frighten people to death. And I guess you're just going to have to hope, if they really do this, and I don't put anything past the Vatican-led New World Order, and what they're doing here to instill more fear in Americans. But here's what's the latest. And a guy named Tyler Durden from Zero Hedge wrote something on it, and one of my listeners sent me it and said, "Greg, get this story out." I said, okay. And he says, after urging its supporters in the West to turn cars into weapons, guidance that inspired terror attacks in the UK, Spain, and France and ISIS. Now, whether they were real or not, I say there were a lot of false flags, but the fear and all of this is still there. They're now calling for sympathizers to poison the food in U.S. supermarkets with cyanide, according to several of their ISIS websites. In recent days, channels associated with the terrorist army have posted calls for attacks on Europe, Russia, and the United States to mark the occasion of the Islamic sacrifice feast, Eid al-Adha. In the third part of an English language series on jihad, ISIS has advised would-be attackers to inject food for sale in markets with cyanide poison. According to SPISA, the organization has tested these methods on prisons, causing horrifically painful deaths. So now, folks, here we go. You got to worry about tainted food. I mean, you got to buy food, right? The Islamic State group, quote, used prisoners as human guinea pigs, carrying out chemical weapon experiments in order to plan for the attacks against the West. Documents found in Mosul have revealed. You know, stories like this, and I'm just going to stop for a second and I'll finish the story. Okay, many of you know I've moved. I still have my boat that I lived on in America. And I decided to move to Mexico. And I've been procrastinating coming back, you know, just for a weekend. I'm getting to the point, you know, I got to go renew my driver's license and, you know, those darn tags. I don't know why they don't give you tags for why do you even have tags on your car? Just a money maker. I remember when I first drove, there weren't tags. They give you a license plate and that was it. You buy it one time. Man, they think of everything, don't they? And they just drive you crazy. Now here in Mexico, nobody has any. People drive without license plates. You know, and I've seen they got American cars down here with California plates. I've seen Colorado plates. I've seen Kansas plates, and they don't have any tags on them. Maybe one had one from 2003. I see them from 2010. And nobody stops anybody. They don't have license plates on. And then they got these little trucks that go down. They got 20 people in the back, and they're off to the fields. It's a little bit different here. But I'm telling you, when I hear stories like this, I mean, I don't even want to go back anymore. I really don't. I said, well, hell, what do I need a driver's license there? If I don't go back there, I don't need to drive there. I don't know. It's just too much. Isn't it funny, though, when they start doing this to you with all these terror attacks and all of these geoengineering things and then worrying about North Korea and all this other stuff, you kind of just want to shut it all off. And then you can't. But then, again, what it's doing, it's clogging your mind up so the simplest of tasks that you have to perform in a day become harder. What is that called? Anxiety. They're filling people with anxiety. I know, I get it. And it inhibits your daily life. The simplest of tasks become difficult. Tying your shoes becomes monumental. Getting your driver's license is like climbing Mount Everest. And that's their intention, to create chaos in the mind. But anyway, just one more thing to worry about. The Islamic State group used prisoners and in order to plan attacks against the West. Documents found in Mosul have revealed. The papers detailing the tests which led to the agonizing death of prisoners was discovered at Mosul University in January when it was recaptured by Iraqi special forces. The documents verified by United States and British forces were detailed by the Times in a report published just this Saturday. Prisoners had their food and water contaminated by sprinkling of chemicals found in easily accessible pesticides. The U.S. and Britain now fear that the same methods could be used on a larger scale to contaminate food suppliers in the West. Now, your government, your leaders, are working together with the Vatican to create this organization, and they are causing this to occur. Then they'll come out and say, we're going to try to prevent it. Then they'll either pull a false flag where people supposedly die of cyanide and nobody... You going to go back and eat in that store? Where are you going to go? I mean, every time you pick up an apple, you're going to go, oh my God, is this going to kill me? Another dastardly plan by the Vatican. I mean, these guys. It's unbelievable. And most people think that it's real. I mean, it is real, but it's orchestrated, and your government is involved in it. And your church, if you're Catholic. Aside from the obvious death toll, we imagine that a terror attack in an American grocery store would annihilate billions in grocery stock market cap, adding to the industry's Whole Foods market-inspired woes. So not only would it affect, it goes down the chain, the buyers, the producers, The investors who once saw grocers as an oasis in troubled retail sector are increasingly balking now that Amazon has promised to use sensors and automation to save on staffing costs and undercut rivals on pricing, and the terror threats won't help. In other Islamic State news, a convoy of 17 buses carrying Islamic State terrorists and their families has been stranded in Syrian desert since Thursday, as the U.S., Russia, and Syria debate its fate. The attack convoy, or allow it to pass. In an unusual deal, the convoy of Islamic State fighters and their families were allowed to exit their contested stronghold along Syrian-Lebanese border under the watch of Lebanese and Syrian armies and Hezbollah after being defeated. As first announced by Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. I mean, these organizations, they're like, they have they have a chain of command now. I mean, it's ridiculous, really, what's happened to this world. And in a speech he gave Monday night, the deal involved the transportation of 26 wounded and 308 ISIS fighters, along with 331 civilian family members via buses and ambulances to Syria's eastern province. The image of the convoy of terrorists helplessly stranded in the desert is perhaps the biggest blow to their propaganda. At the same time, the group is struggling for relevance with a resurgent Al-Qaeda. Wow. Which is encouraging supporters to sabotage trains and other public infrastructure in the U.S., specifically the New York City subway system. Just one more day in America, right? One more day. And I'm sure they'll think of something else outside of tainting of the food, but back on that story, that is something to really watch out for, and to see if their plans come to fruition. Now, we know that ISIS is not just an organization that grew up out of nowhere. They have to be funded, and we've traced that, and many people have looked into this, that money does flow in from the West. I've also done articles regarding certain Jesuit priests who are involved in Syria deeply with ISIS. And it doesn't surprise me one bit to see that now they're moving towards another. What else can they do? I mean, it's endless. And it's going to be an endless stream of one after another until, it's kind of like you watch, a boxer, first go to the ropes. Then he goes down a little bit lower, and then it's to his knees, and then he's flattened over. And that kind of is my analogy of what they're trying to do to America. And everybody's talking about September as being a really huge month. And it's starting out, boy, one thing after another. So we're going to see where it goes. And we haven't even talked about Korea today and some of the latest things that are going on there, which I'll get to in the second half hour, along with a couple other very interesting stories regarding the shape of this country, what's happening in this country, as well as, how to react to it. I mean, the types of things that are going on make some people just want to not even think about any of it anymore. I know that, because it gets just a little bit too much. But this is how they work. And we haven't even got into the financial stuff yet. What they could do to the banking system, and what they could do. One day you could go and there's no money, and the ATMs are shut off. We haven't even talked about their plans to hit the power grid and turn off the lights in a very bright America, right? Turning it dark. And then we have people talking about, well, when that eclipse came and brought America into darkness, that was a sign and symbol of what's coming in the future. So anyway, let's meet up on the other side of this 3-minute break. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, that was quick. We're back for the last half hour of the Investigative Journal on this Thursday, September 7th, 2017 day on our calendar. And it does appear to me that America is under attack, under a heavy assault at this point. And if you look deeply behind the scenes and between the lines, you'll see, look, you got hurricane after hurricane being geoengineered. You have wildfires breaking out. The largest wildfire in the city of LA broke out just recently. And up north it was burning. A friend of mine called me from the Mount Shasta area. And also we have a series swarm of earthquakes in Idaho. And that's related to the Yellowstone story. And that's just starters. Then we have the threat of North Korea. And I wanted to get to the latest on that. Not much since yesterday outside. I did pretty much on it yesterday and told you that they're kicking around this idea of, I think right now behind the scenes, I always try to second guess or look forward to, I think they're kicking around now how they're going to blow this thing up, how they're going to make this war start. They're thinking of the perfect time, the exact right time for that dictator to lob a missile somewhere, to ignite some tension and get the bombs flowing. I think that's what they're really doing now. Because it's been a long time, they can't be without a war. Do you realize that, when you look at the history of this country from 1776 till today, we've only not been in a war for like 20 years. And like I always like to say, we're a warring nation. That's what we do best. We do best at orchestrating wars and then getting people to believe that they're really being attacked by people who hate us. And people buy it hook, line, and sinker. And I try to tell people, the people in the world don't hate you. I mean, I've traveled, not extensively, but enough to know that the average Joe in some of the places outside of the country that I live, born in America, they don't hate us at all. It's their orchestration of these hate groups that they create, just like Soros and the Jesuits are creating these left and right hate groups in our country. They do it all over the world. And I have a friend who's traveled for the last 12 years without returning to the United States in most every corner of the world, and she keeps in touch with me, and she echoes the same thing. There's a whole different game going on at the higher levels of governments in India working with us, working with the Vatican-led New World Order, the Vatican-led New World Order puppets in Africa, in South America, in every country, in Mexico, you name it. And they've got it locked. China. And I always go back to that quote, and it's always good to do because you have to have some reference in your life. There was a Jesuit general, and if you don't know who a Jesuit general is, and why would they call a priesthood head a general unless they were a warring body of men hiding behind the robes of Christ? Well, anyway, this Jesuit general, hundreds of years ago, I think his last name was Tamborini, stated, "We control the world from China to the south, to the north, to the east, to the west, without anybody knowing how we do it right here, from Santo Spirito Cinque in Rome." I mean, what more evidence do you need? And then people will say, well, they've changed. No, they haven't. Nothing ever changes with them. They're the same and worse now. And it is this lack of knowledge that is going to kill off this country. Because they wanted to get their dirty hands on this country right from the very beginning, and they did. And I'm not going to go through that today because I've spent hours and hours on shows that have probably gone in one ear and out the other of so many people that it's, it's like whistling in the wind to yourself sometimes. And people probably wonder, I have a house in Mexico, and I have a nice little garden area. And I go outside, and I got one chair down there. I keep the chairs up on the patio. And I go down on this one chair looking at all the mountains in the distance and the ocean on the other side and all the plants. And I talk to myself. Yeah. And people probably think I'm crazy. Because I don't stop when people come by. And not many people come by. But you know what? Some of them, they don't speak English anyway, so they probably just think I'm, learning Spanish or something, or speaking. So I'll say something in English and say something in Spanish, and then I'll talk to them. But I started talking to myself, and I kind of enjoy it. You know why? Because I listen. I'm even listening to me. I used to listen to everybody else. I spent my life listening to people. That's what was my job. Listen and learn. ask questions. And, I tried to import that kind of information to people, going way above the call of duty when it comes to saying, listen, we got to take a leap forward here and get to the real truth. And it's not going to be easy. But I think I've placed myself in positions where I've almost been like a test monkey or a guinea pig to say, hey, yeah, I was right there with all these COINTEL guys when the internet started. I was right there in Rome when the biggest scandal hit. I was almost killed by a bomb that went off in an American newspaper, which made me wonder, why would the CIA put it in there 10 days before Reagan came and almost killed me and this Italian guy? Because they were doing the same thing back then in the 80s as they're doing now. And so I started a quest. I said, man, my life was 10 seconds away from being not here right now. And I might have been better off, to be honest with you. But that's not in the plan of the Creator. He wants me around for some reason. And by the way, I have to say this. I got a call from my good friend from Illinois, who I grew up with and went to school with, and we were buddies ever since we were 5 years old. And because I was a traveler and moved around, I lost track a lot of my high school buddies. But usually when he calls me, it's either because he's going to come and visit in California or somebody died. And so he called today, and I didn't answer the phone, and I thought to myself, somebody must have died. I had that feeling. And I said, this month it's hitting me hard, just like it's the last few months. This whole year, I call it the year of death. Because that's all I've been, every month something happens. Somebody close to me goes. And I'm getting a little tired of it, Well, anyway, sure enough, a guy that I was close to in high school named John Eggert. Johnny was a good friend, and he came down with cancer almost 10 years ago. And he's been struggling with it. And Johnny was a scholarship basketball player at the University of Notre Dame. He played basketball for our high school team. And I still remember, I was a football player and a baseball player. And I used to go watch the basketball games all the time. And John ended up getting a scholarship to Notre Dame. And he played, he wasn't the starter all the time, but he played for 4 years on that scholarship and was a great guy. Passed away just last week. So I just wanted to mention that to you, that, as your friends and relatives go, we got a reason for living, is being here. And it isn't just to survive. And we have to understand what they're doing to us. I mean, I can't pinpoint. There's so many cases of cancer now that cancer's, and we know it has to be related to the tainted food, the tainted water, the tainted air, all the toxins, all the pollutions, all the chemicals, all the mercury, all the stuff they put in the barium, strontium, all of these heavy metals, causing, immune systems to break down, causing cancers, causing all these diseases that don't need to be there. And I can't say for sure, but maybe Johnny was one of the victims. And I just wanted to say that because my heart goes out to his family, and I know his wife really well, or did in the past. And all I could remember when my friend told me that John passed away, was that we used to play, before we go out on the weekend, we'd meet up, go in his house, and he had this Nerf basketball game. I don't know if you ever remember it. It's a little Nerf ball. And we would sit there and play Nerf basketball before we were going out on a date to, with our girlfriends or something. And then, there'd be the times we would, I'd catch Johnny and I'd say, hey, come on, I'm going to beat you at horse. Or I'm going to beat you at one-on-one. And he'd have his basketball net up on the garage. And we had some good times. And so I'm going to miss you, Johnny. But anyway, I got to get moving here on this show. And I almost forgot where the heck I was. So, yeah, John's death took me away from really anything of that I was thinking about. But let me get back. Let me try to get my my head straight here. America under attack. There's just one thing after another going on. And I did want to mention this story that came across my desk. And it doesn't seem like a big one, but there had been a bill passed in Congress. When was this? Let me see. I had it here. As the Department of Homeland Security slowly implements the Real ID Act of 2005, everybody's forgotten about that. Standards will change at airports around the country very soon, effective January 22nd, 2018. That's not far away. The DHS, when you go to the airports, you better get ready. They won't accept, in 25 states now, usual IDs, the airlines. They're not going to accept your driver's license from half the travelers from non-compliant states. Will need to show an alternative form of ID, such as a passport, when boarding a plane. So you're going to have to show your passport or something else. I don't know. Is your birth certificate okay? Then they're going to probably pass something that says you're going to have to get a national ID, or you're going to have to get, it's going to get to the point where you're going to have to be microchipped to get on an airplane. That's what they're going to do. I swear to God, I bet you that's what's going to happen. So they're starting now. So 25 states are implementing that in January. Then there's the rest of them. I've got some kind of program where they're giving you a little bit extra time. So look at that. Just Google it and you'll see if you're in one of the states that won't allow you in January to travel unless you have a passport or another form of ID over and above your driver's license. Okay, let's end the show with some news that came out of Washington. And I got this sent by, I get a lot of things sent by listeners lately. And I do want to thank one listener for sending in a donation. I appreciate it. Any little bit helps. And maybe you can do the same if you listen to this show, because we're listener sponsored. And we need every penny we can to keep this thing on the air. It does take time to do these shows. It does take, and it's not so much. When I've been doing this so long, it's almost like riding a bicycle. You get up, you ride your bike, and you put it away, and you ride it again. But there comes a time when you really need to, if you listen to this show, to support it, to keep it going. If you want to hear some things. And you never know what you're going to hear on this show, because we go all the way to the root of the problem and the snake. And to cut that snake's head off, you got to first understand who it is. And we all know who that is. All roads lead to Rome. So, the person who sent this said, Trump is so full of it, it isn't even funny. Military intelligence knows exactly who these pedophiles are. And Keenan didn't sing like a bird for law enforcement to arrest other cronies. I was told years ago that every Friday night the limos line up on a particular street in D.C. to receive their gifts, in quotes. This article I'm sending you, Greg, making Trump look like he is doing his job, is such, well, I won't use the word, BS. It's difficult for me to read it, but I know why it was sent out. Okay, so we know. They send it out so they want you to think they're cracking down on the pedophile rings. But they're only getting worse. And the guys that are really the pedophiles are walking, they're at the top levels of all our government organizations. They go right to the top levels of the Vatican, all the cardinals, like the Cardinal of New York. Remember Cardinal Spellman? Yes. That is why they do it. They throw somebody to the dogs and everybody thinks, well, they're cleaning it up, but they're not. So this Democratic politician tied to D.C. pedophilia admits multiple counts of raping children. So a former Ohio mayor ties to the elite Washington, D.C. pedophile ring has pled guilty in court to multiple counts of sex crimes recently, including a raping of a child as young as 4 years old. I mean, these people are sick. What do you do with people like this? As President Trump's vow to take down Pedogate steps up another greasy rung of the political ladder. Democrat Richard Keenan confessed to dozens of sex crimes, including charges of rape, attempted rape, and gross sexual imposition, and agreed to a sentence of life in prison. According to court records, when Keenan was arrested, he claimed that the 4-year-old girl initiated it. Now, life in prison isn't good enough for this guy. It's too good for this guy. Telling police she came on to me at 4 years old. This stuff makes me, and what they're doing, they're putting this out saying, oh, look we got the top dog. He's not the top dog. He's taking the fall. According to Fox 59, court documents revealed that the victim told Keenan's wife about the sexual abuse that began when she was 4 years old and lasted for 3 years. When Keenan's wife confronted him about the allegations, he responded, yeah, I did it. Keenan also confessed to the allegations to his pastor, a social worker, and his brother and sister-in-law. According to documents filed by the assistant prosecutor, Keenan admitted himself into a psychiatric facility after the admissions because he said he was feeling suicidal. They should have just let him kill himself and not accept him. Filings obtained by the Youngstown Vindicator go into extensive detail about his purported admissions during group discussions at the psychiatric ward. He allegedly said he blamed the victim for initiating the acts and said she was a willing participant. He was visibly shaken Friday as he changed his plea to guilty on 20 counts of sex crimes, including 8 counts of rape. Keenan agreed to a life sentence with the eligibility for parole in 10 years. What the hell's that? So you agree to a life sentence, but he can get out on parole in 10 years. And you think he will? He's got buddies. Maybe he will. As long as he shuts up. But the real guys, the other guys involved, gives the victim some closure, doesn't it? No. Obviously keeps this young child from having to testify. Of course, that's good. And I think it's a good result given all the facts, and that's the assistant prosecutor, Gabe Wildman. He said prosecutors have a responsibility to do what's best for the victim, and that they accomplished that Friday. Not bringing her into this to testify in a small courtroom is the best thing. They lashed out at reporters after the hearing and tried to block him from the camera's view. Prosecutors said this just goes to show how difficult these cases are for everyone. I think that we've seen today is that they're tough, right? They're tough on everyone. Now, this is interesting. As they get down, they start talking about Trey Gowdy. Now, you've seen him on the news. He's a congressman, former lawyer, prosecutor, I believe. This case was a victory for Congressman Trey Gowdy, who has been working hard for restitution for victims of pedophilia and child sex trafficking after he told Congress that no child victim should have to stand in court and face their rapist. Now, Trey, why don't you get to the real root of the problem, man? You probably were sitting next to a bunch of rapists. And you probably know who they are. I mean, it's too much. It's an emotionally charged speak. Gowdy told a room of prosecutors that he vowed to take down the elite pedophile ring that is infesting Washington and the rest of the nation. Well, then you better start, talking to the Pope and get that gang all cleaned up in the United States. Because you got a lot of jobs. That is all talk. Talk. And you watch. They'll find a couple people to take the fall, and that'll be it. Now, since Trump has sworn as president and promised the American people that he would destroy the child trafficking networks in the United States, if he was for real, these guys, the Pope would destroy him. He'd have to take down the Pope and all the cardinals. It's never going to happen. The conviction of Keenan, this article says, is a real victory in the destruction of Pedogate, with officials now claiming that the first high-ranking Democrat to plead guilty in court with connections to D.C. pedophilia ring will sing like a bird in hope of having his life sentence reduced. No way. That's one of these articles that makes all people think that, they're really cracking down. Look at Trump. He's cracking down on the pedophile ring. He knows them all. So does Trey Gowdy. And they know it's only going to get worse. And if they go and kiss the Pope's ring, then they're actually kissing a pedophile. And they know what's exactly going on. And they're never going to stop the Vatican from doing what they're doing, because they work together. And they give you this kind of story to make you think, oh, we're really doing something. But while this guy takes the fall, you can bet these pedophile rings are growing larger and larger and larger. And really probably, if you got down to the bottom of all of it, there wouldn't be a government left, at least at the top levels. Because of not only if they're not a pedophile, they're complicit in the act of letting it go on. So you got to get rid of them as well. And then you got to get rid of all the Vatican people, all the Jesuits that are involved in this stuff, the high-level Vatican sickness that they're involved in. So you're getting rid of a lot of the top echelon of the Vatican, and not to mention all these others, ecumenical pastors who are probably just as sick as these other guys, these other Satanists. And that's the little game they're playing on everybody. And they want to ensnare you in it as well. Because their goal basically is take everybody to hell with them. To hell in a handbasket, right down with them. And American people, without being informed, you're not going to be able to, stop that. You're not going to be able to stop them. You're not going to be able to stop them from taking you along with them. And if that's where you want to go, then go right ahead. But if you want a better life for yourself and your children, you better start figuring out where this is coming from. Why is America being attacked? When did it start? Who's really deeply involved? And you can bet you're not going to get the truth if you just listen to the mainstream and most of the alternative media on the internet. You're going to have to do a lot of research on your own. You're going to have to take a leap of faith and say, hey, listen, I gotta check this out. Is that really true, what they're saying about the Vatican and the Jesuits? Then you're going to start getting to the root of the problem. And from there, your journey will really inspire you to keep going. I promise you that. But you can't forget about it. And you got to keep chipping away so you can definitely get to the point where you can say simply, hey, all roads lead to Rome, and we're going to find out who's following the Pope's orders and the Black Pope's orders from Rome. And you'd be surprised. It'll spread, those tentacles spread worldwide. And it's an orchestration to bring about a one world order and a one world religion. And we're in some people say, the final stages of it. And it looks that way. To me, how long, no one can tell. But anyway, we'll be back tomorrow, Friday, last day of the week, for another show on the Investigative Journal. Thanks for coming by, and see you tomorrow.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.